it became personal when I was doing my own therapy and realizing just how deeply emotional money is. And it inherently is. Like, you never had an unemotional money experience. It's built in, it's just part of the process. So it's something we need to lean into as well.
Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You, the podcast for the future of wealth management. Thanks for being here. I'm Marla Sofer. Money is a tool. It empowers people. Let's dive into how technology is personalizing advice, strengthening connections, and creating lasting impact. If you're an advisor looking to differentiate, a fintech leader shaping the next wave, or a client ready to take control of your financial future, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, and today we are excited to welcome Nathan Astle to the podcast, a trailblazer helping people heal their relationships with money through the powerful practice of financial therapy. Nathan is the founder of the Financial Therapy Clinical Institute, a first-of-its-kind collaborative clinic where financial therapy, financial counseling, and financial planning come together to support holistic financial wellness. With a background rooted in his own personal journey growing up amid financial conflict and feeling isolated around money as an adult, Nathan has dedicated his career to helping others break free from shame, confusion, and fear around their finances. His work bridges the crucial gap between financial literacy and emotional well-being, offering people a new way to engage with money that's deeply human and healing. Today, we dive into how emotions shape our financial lives, how trauma impacts our money behaviors, and why money management isn't just about numbers, it's about connection, trust, and hope. Welcome, Nate, to the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Delighted that you're here as well. What is the most exciting thing about the moment that we're in right now? What are you seeing that kind of just sparks your energy?
I think at least what I'm seeing in the field currently is people are recognizing that financial planning and financial advising in general isn't just a numbers game anymore. Like, you being good at math and projections and all that kind of stuff isn't enough for me to want to invest, quite frankly, want to trust you. I think that's something that financial advisors are seeing more and more of as technology and the fintech and other kind of advancements are happening. I'm excited to see how financial advisors lean into soft skills, lean into people side of this business, which has always been there, always been important. But I think we're starting to see just how important as technology is able to do some of the more math parts that traditionally only people have been able to do.
You hit on something so important, that the absence of getting into this side of the relationship with money has a huge impact on trust. In order to build trust, you really need to tap in to the emotional side, to how you actually view and reach money and use it as a tool to live a better life. Can you share a little bit about your journey to financial therapy? What brought you here? What is it that inspired you to become a financial therapist?
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways, it was the right place at the right time. But basically, I knew I wanted to be a therapist. I went to Kansas State University to get my master's degree in couples and family therapy. I didn't know at the time, but K-State is kind of a hub for financial therapy. And it really just fell into it backwards. I was always interested in money. I felt like, oh, this is an interesting part of how we live our lives. And then obviously there's stress and it affects couple dynamics and all this stuff. But it wasn't until I was in therapy myself and working through my own hurts and wounds that I realized just how personal money is. I come from a family where money was a big source of conflict. I remember seeing my parents fight about money a lot. And I remember not only that conflict and how it made me feel, but I remember feeling like money was this thing that just caused problems. And I started to really resent money, resented the idea of money, and just like, oh, I just hate I have to deal with this. And unfortunately, as I grew into adulthood, that had an impact on my own financial behaviors. I was pretty avoidant with a lot of money stuff for a long time. And even when I got into a long-term relationship and got married, my wife would want to talk about goals and budgets and all that kind of stuff because it's a good thing to do. And I felt this deep aversion to it. So I think I fell into the career in a, very lucky moment of serendipity, but it became personal when I was doing my own therapy and realizing just how deeply emotional money is. And it inherently is. Like you never had an unemotional money experience. It's built in, it's just part of the process. So it's something we need to lean into as well.
So it sounds like you first heard about financial therapy when you were at Kansas State on the journey to becoming a therapist and recognizing how impactful money was in your history, your exposure, everything that you kind of grew up with and saw and your own emotional relationship with it. For people who are just hearing, and we've had another financial therapist on this podcast, but for people who are just hearing about financial therapy for the first time, how would you describe it and who really benefits from it?
Yeah, so financial therapy is a process where we're focused on changing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money. So it's different than traditional financial advising or financial planning because there's less of a focus on long term projections or even making decisions around money. While a financial therapist certainly can help in your decision making process, the goal is less about a financial outcome and more about a psychological outcome. We want you to feel like you're experiencing money differently, experiencing yourself differently. You're able to notice feelings of shame or fear or insecurity that is driving some of your financial behaviors. And by working on those feelings or those thoughts, it also has a subsequent impact on your behaviors as well. So it's much more focused on psychological well-being than traditional financial planning. Financial therapy, I think of it as like a pretty big umbrella that covers anything between financial planning on one end and mental health therapy on the other. So there's going to be some financial therapists that are traditionally financial planners, but are just getting really good at using soft skills and psychological tools. And then you've got on the other end, maybe someone more like me who are trained mental health practitioners that are able to discuss money, but I'm not going to necessarily give an investment advice. And the financial planner turned financial therapist probably isn't going to give you a mental health diagnosis either. So it's kind of a big umbrella.
That makes a lot of sense. There are, I'm sure, some advisors and planners that listen to this podcast fairly regularly. What are some tools or steps that you might be able to share from your deep work working with people on improving those thoughts, beliefs, feelings about money that they might be able to embed in their practice? And how can you kind of maybe leave them with a little nugget with, okay, in the next conversation I have, here is something that I might want to work in?
One of the common fears I hear from advisors is I don't want to step out of my lane. And I want to be real sure just to.
They don't feel credentialed, maybe. Like they're not a therapist. I don't have a credential in therapy. I'm here to help you with your asset allocation and your, simulation to see that you can beat this index or whatever it is.
Right. And it's understandable. And obviously, yes, I want you to be ethical in your work. I also think, quite frankly, that a lot of financial advisors are afraid. They're just afraid to do the unknown. And those numbers and those projections are a security blanket for them. The thing is you don't have to be a therapist to be kind and compassionate, to be a good listener, to ask effective questions. You don't have to be a therapist to be able to understand where people are and to be able to empathize. These are just human skills. Honestly, 80% of what I do as a therapist is be a human with people. I think if we can kind of work past the idea that I have to fix someone or fix someone's mental health and say, you know what? It's kind of like CPR. I don't have to be a medical professional to understand CPR and be able to use some of those tools to, keep someone alive in a life-threatening situation until a true medical professional can come in and take over. You don't have to be a therapist to know how to give active feedback or active listening. I can have a warm, fuzzy heart for people, but how do I actually show that? What tone of voice do I use? What questions do I ask? Why do I ask those questions? These are just human skills.
You're very good, by the way. I've noticed your tone of voice. You definitely have one of those calming therapy voices.
Well, that comes with mutual practice. But It's one of those things like I think I gently and firmly want to nudge advisors. So you don't have to be a therapist to be someone who's skilled in soft skills.
I think that's so helpful. Just being human, having empathy. And I think you said CPR. I think being able to triage, kind of recognizing when somebody is in an episode, maybe in an intense
Mhm.
trauma, when they are going through something really severe and seeing it and recognizing it and not saying, well, why don't you just do this, without kind of recognizing that doing this might be really challenging and might require a lot of work. You said, I've read something where you wrote that our culture doesn't set us up to succeed with money. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Why do you feel like we're kind of our media and our culture and the way that we have embraced money as a society has kind of set us up for mass trauma, if I
Yeah.
can kind of use words you didn't say?
Money is so isolating. Very few of us have places to go to talk about money. And when we do talk about money, it tends to be very numbers heavy. Everyone kind of sees money as this very private thing, which, whatever your values are about that, we have to acknowledge that most of us don't have places to go. Maybe you have a financial advisor. They may or may not have the soft skills that you need to work through that. Most mental health practitioners don't get any training with working with money issues or money difficulties. And quite frankly, I just think most of us are isolated. And the thing that goes with isolation is shame. Shame is this incredibly difficult thing to work through when you're isolated. It actually thrives in isolation. But shame dies when we are safe in vulnerable places. When we're able to talk about money, talk about, hey, I'm really struggling. I'm struggling to keep to my budget. I'm really struggling because, maybe I was lucky enough to get this inheritance, but it was from a family member that I didn't have a great relationship with. Or I just feel like my whole marriage has been defined by my ability to make money, and making money is what makes me successful. We are way past numbers here. We are talking about deep psychological needs. And if we can't create culture that allows us to talk about money and open up about the fact that this thing that all of us interact with every single day of our lives is deeply emotional, it's tied to our values, it's tied to our self-worth. It's never just a numbers game. And I think that's something that professionally we need to acknowledge and work towards, but also just in a broader sense of our culture. Let's make money something okay to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know about the listeners, but as you were speaking, I certainly went deep and kind of was feeling, oh, wow, that's really resonating. And there's a lot in what you're saying that I think people feel and recognize. I do experience that in my own life. I feel that kind of questioning of my self-worth, of my decisions that I've made, going into couples and relationships and roles. You kind of touched on that a little bit. And for many, and I've interviewed also hundreds, especially of women who see money as a huge area of challenge. And this is from several angles. This is women who, many of them are, and just because this is my network, have worked in money their entire careers. They are in asset management or wealth or banking, yet they're often not as involved as their partner when it comes to their own personal finance. They kind of defer that role. And sometimes it comes with resentment. And then I meet women who go through a divorce, and then it is literally the first time that they're learning about their own money, how to manage it, and building confidence from ground zero. So when you think about couples and money, what are some things that and tools and lessons you've got or stories that you've come across that can help partners talk about finances, talk about kind of those areas that they may not even be aware of, and bring them to the surface so that they can have a really productive, I guess, healthier relationship with each other as a result of talking about money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super, super common. The couples are kind of my bread and butter, as I actually wrote my master's thesis on couples, money, and power dynamics. And there's anything that I know about how couples manage finances is they have to be a team. And what that really means is you have to be equally involved in the financial decision making. It doesn't mean that, obviously there's going to be maybe one person that knows a bit more or is just a little bit better at organizing finances or whatever. That's fine. The thing is knowledge is power, as PBS taught me. And if one person is out of the loop about what's going on financially, it is inherently a disempowering position. And so when we're trying to make financial decisions as a couple, if I don't know what's going on or if I'm disengaged, I'm really kind of not in a great place to be part of the decision making process. So, one thing I do advocate for all couples is everyone needs to be on accounts, everyone needs to have access and to be able to see things visually. This is something more of a financial structure, but it's a financial structure that promotes egalitarian or equal decision making. The other kind of thing is, as I mentioned, this is a deeply emotional experience and is emotional for both people. There might be gender role expectations that come into, well, I'm the man, so I'm supposed to make money. And that's, even if this isn't a value of mine, it's still taught in our culture. It's still something that I saw my parents do, or still something that it's kind of like a poisonous fume that all of us are breathing in, whether we like it or not, about the gender expectations of money management. We need to, in our couples, we need to talk about what do we expect and why? And is that just because that's what we were taught, or is that because that's what's actually good for us in our relationship? I do encourage couples to talk not only about their financial goals and financial decision making, talk about your financial history, talk about the way you grew up with money.
What if financial planning wasn't just about numbers, but about you, your values, your goals, your vision for the future? Nomi is transforming client discovery for wealth managers, going beyond assets and risk scores to uncover what truly matters. With behavioral insights and real-time data, Nomi helps advisors personalize advice, build deeper connections, and grow their businesses. Because the best financial decisions start with knowing you. Discover the future of client engagement at Nomi.com. How do you deal with couples who are resistant to that? If you have one side of the couple who may be a little bit more averse to therapy and doesn't want to talk about that financial history, number one, or number two, doesn't see the connection between their money history and what they were exposed to and their behaviors and relationship with money today. And so they kind of say, no, that's a bunch of baloney. I'm not going to have this conversation. How do you address
Yeah.
that?
Well, generally, I'm going to try and be very gentle because they might, if I try and, logic them to death, it probably won't work because that aversion is also an emotional reaction. So I think be like, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm hearing the baloney. How do you think that perspective or viewpoint is impacting your relationships? Because they might not be able to see the connection, but they do see that their partner's upset. Tell me why. Why do you think partner is upset, or why do you think your partner wants to see a financial therapist? Usually they're able to see, well, I know that we have different perspectives. Yeah, why do you think you have different perspectives? Like, honestly, people don't tend to resist the idea that the past influences them. They tend to resist the idea that it's currently influencing them. And so the more that we can see, like, hey, all of us are affected by our past and by our emotions. I made an emotional spending decision today when I had a long day and I had to go get groceries. And I was at the checkout counter and I grabbed a candy bar that I wasn't planning on getting. I made that decision because I was in an emotional state. You and all of us make emotional decisions around money all the time. And if they are very logic minded, I can show them research about, like, actually, there's a huge chunk of us and a huge chunk of decisions that are made emotionally. So it's gentle, challenging, but honestly, if people are coming to me for financial therapy, they usually get that on some level.
And how do you help people rewrite their own internal stories and scripts so that now you've kind of gotten them to recognize the past plays a role and maybe they're able to surface and say, yeah, that was how I was. It doesn't affect me today. Maybe they start to see that linkage. And then how do you actually guide them toward changing that story so that their behavior follows suit?
It's a good question. Exploring the story enough that they can see why they maybe struggle with the things that they struggle is a really important thing. The other thing is when it comes to, as you say, changing the story, a lot of times we have to go to what are the emotions, not only what is it the experience that taught us, but what are the emotions that I'm still holding on to from the past that continues to guide my story today? And I, ask him like, you've been driven by a lot of fear or a lot of sadness or a lot of shame or a lot of resentment or anger. What do you think it would be like to let go of some of that?
Like help them tap into that. Like, I know that if I can do this, I might feel this way as a motivator.
Right. Emotions are huge motivators, which is, again, another problem, I think, in traditional financial advising is we try to take emotions out of everything. It's like, no, emotions are the things that's going to make people do the change. What we need to do is help them connect the emotions that they're experiencing with the goals that they want. You tell me you want this outcome. Why? What are the values that are informing the outcome that you're asking for? What are the barriers to that outcome happening? And what are the emotions that you need to pay attention to, you need to soothe, you need to get support with, that's going to help you so that you can continue moving forward. So the thing is about emotions is they are short term. We have a million, not really a million, but we have hundreds of emotions every day. We don't want to make all of our decisions based in our emotions, but we do need to use our emotions to help us move towards a goal. It's helping them connect to the why. Like, why is this really important to you? Yeah.
I was just going to add, I feel also in my interviews and in my own life, another big motivator is my kids. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, gosh, how many times have my kids asked me for something and I say, no, go ask your dad. And it's that deference, I guess. The person who's in charge of the purse strings is that one. And it's not that. It's that we have different emotional relationships with money. And whereas I would probably say yes, and I'm kind of even afraid, what if I say yes? And then there's kind of a reaction that's like, why did you say yes? Or vice versa. I feel like that motivator of what is the model you're creating for your children is an extremely strong one where people want their children to have a healthier, better relationship with money. So I've got two questions and then we'll start to wrap up. One is how do you help advisors and professionals, money professionals, really change the way that they view this partnership? The way that they look at therapy and an emotional relationship with money together with the very transactional, tactical side of money.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is helping advisors see that therapists are your friends. Therapists can help your clients in a lot of different ways. And just like many advisors have support networks for their clients, they have estate attorneys or, tax professionals. Maybe it's something that they aren't doing. They're creating a professional support system around their clients. Therapists can and should be part of that system.
We've had a planner here on the podcast, actually a friend, Carrie Carbonaro, who says, sometimes I'll tell my client, you need therapy. She'll even refer them to a therapist. Yeah.
Totally appropriate. And quite honestly, if therapy is something that I've never done before or is scary, or I don't know how to start therapy, again, my planner, if I have a good relationship with my financial advisor and they're like, hey, I'm seeing some things. I think you're seeing some things is making this plan be difficult to come to fruition. It's a super common thing to have challenges with this, and it might be helpful for a therapist to talk through. You don't have to make this a stigmatized conversation. You don't need to whisper like, I think you need therapy. It's like, yeah, of course, therapy. It's what everyone needs at different points of their lives.
Yeah, and you destigmatize it when you say, here's what I got out of it. I've gone through it. And this is, and I think you started with this at the very beginning when you said advisors are afraid. And when they go through this process, we had a different podcast guest here as well. You may know him, Ed Combs, who said, look, my kind of partnership between him being a marriage and family therapist and a financial planner together is rooted in his own therapy, his own personal experience, and how he went through it the same way that you started off. And so I think advisors doing that therapy themselves helps them be better for their clients. And it sounds like you're saying the same thing.
This is a simple adage, but I haven't found an exception to it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's
beautiful
especially
that is.
for financial advisors. You can be the smartest you can have a crystal ball and see everything in the future. But if your clients don't know that you care about them as human beings and you care about their lives and their outcomes and their emotional experience, your projections might not be nearly as impactful as you want them to be. So it's okay to do scary things. Scary doesn't mean dangerous. And if you're having fear about having these conversations with some of your clients, it might be worth it to see your own therapist, because that fear is coming from somewhere and it's coming from something. So how do we work through that so that you can do your job even better?
There's so much in there. I appreciate that you shared that. Nate, what is one instance in your life or a conversation you've had that has changed your personal relationship with money?
It's a really good question. For me, it's maybe not an incident, but a person, my partner. My relationship with my partner it's a lot of work, just like all couples are. But she has helped me see and heal from my financial trauma in ways others haven't. She's not a therapist either. And I think this is kind of maybe the point, is her kindness, her gentleness, her compassion, her gentle challenging. That has done so much to change the way I experience money, help me work through fear, help me work through shame. And I think this kind of the point is, you don't have to be a therapist with all the right mental surgical tools to help someone live a healthier relationship with money. All you need is to care, to be compassionate, to get the training that you need. But you can do this. I consider financial advising as a helping profession, just as much as teaching or nursing or anything else. And a lot of what you do, I would actually say the majority of what a financial advisor does is be a person. And if you do that part right, the rest will work itself out.
Oh, what a great note to end on. Nate, thank you for such a compassionate, I would say that you also have a very gentle tone, demeanor, and eye-opening conversation. Your work reminds us that healing our relationships with money is possible and that we don't have to go through it alone. I love that you said, just be human, care, actually care. Don't try to show you care. Authentically. Where can our listeners learn more about the Financial Therapy Clinical Institute and the professional trainings that you offer to advisors?
Yeah, so we have a website, financialtherapyclinicalinstitute.com. You can Google search us. I'm on LinkedIn. We try to put out a lot of content, both for individuals and for advisors. And we also actually have a recent podcast ourselves called the Money Minus Shame podcast, where we kind of talk about some of these topics a little bit more in depth. So there's lots of places to find us. Just search for me, search for the Financial Therapy Clinical Institute, and I'm sure we can help you.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, how has your money story shaped your financial life? I would love to hear your reflections. What did you think of this podcast? Please like, share, comment, and drop me a comment or a message anytime. Nate, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more transformative conversations to you. Until next time, keep discovering, keep growing, and remember, you're in control of your own financial story. Follow us for more conversations on financial confidence, self-discovery, and the future of money.